Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Crossing the Divide, the show that promotes and encourages common sense as we analyze and discuss current events and issues facing the town of Winchester. My name is Glenn Albanesius, and as always I'm joined by Mr. Ken Fracasso, former mayor and current selectman. Good evening, Ken.
Evening, Glenn.
I'm going to start off as we try to do once in a while when we have the opportunity to talk about the lighter side of the news. Ken, you and I attended the Berkshire Bowl Thanksgiving morning, and Coach Soyas from Gilbert and the football team had a great day, 44-0 I think it was. Mm-hmm. And we are glad to see the collaborative program between Regional 7 and Gilbert working as well as it is. The kids played well. It was a beautiful day, and everyone had a good time. Secondly, I just wanted to acknowledge a bit of interesting news. The Winchester Board of Ed apparently has received a Board Leadership Award, and I just want to read a couple paragraphs from the Register Citizen. The Winchester Board of Education was presented with the Connecticut Association of Boards in Education Level 1 Board Leadership Award during the annual CABE/CAPS Connecticut Association of Public Schools Superintendents Convention held at the Mystic Marriott on Friday, November 16th. The CABE Board Recognition Awards are designed to recognize boards which provide effective leadership to their districts through the use of good practices. This program, which acknowledges the importance of school board members and superintendents working together as effective teams, continue an important trend among school boards and associations across the country. So we just want to acknowledge our Board of Ed is doing a good job, and find it interesting that their brand of administration has risen to the level of receiving an award. So congratulations. Tonight we just want to explain that our game plan is to be transparent, have an understandable and achievable plan, accomplish goals, not simply by talking about them, but being accountable for results. We can't do this alone. We certainly in the near term need the majority to see that change is necessary and possible, and we need the community's help to make this happen. Your resolve and participation is the best force for getting things done and done well. We certainly have a ways to go, but we're confident with your help that Winsted has a bright future.
I think tonight, Glenn, that what we'd like to do is focus on transparency and also disclosure. The fact that there are things that the community should know and what it is that we can do about it as a group. We are very concerned that the majority of the Board of Selectmen don't really understand the fundamental importance of transparency and disclosure. I feel that the majority actually ignores and doesn't discuss these things at any length. Instead, they choose to deny the dire straits that we're in as far as the financial situation is and all the related facts that go along with it. This is nothing new. Winsted's financial condition is in serious condition. We need to have some change here, and there are some basic fundamental issues that need to be brought to the table. We still, as a matter of fact, don't have the 10-11 audit. It's over a year late. Okay. Obviously, the 11-12 budget, the audit, is going to be late also. We've had absolutely no discussion on the Winsted cash flow problem, which we've had year after year. I believe it was 3 years ago that when Candy Perez was mayor, I mean, we were literally begging people to pay their taxes, before January 1st. Mm-hmm. We don't know whether we're going to be in the same situation this year or not. As I said, there's been absolutely no conversation whatsoever where we are with our cash flow. And there are other operational issues. Glenn and I are very concerned about the status of the town finance director. We were informed about this very recently. There's been an article in the paper, and to be truthful with you, we have no more information than you do. And I think this is going to be a huge problem moving forward. There hasn't been much in the paper just, some innuendos, and, we can't run the town on rumors and speculation. We need to have some facts, good, bad, or indifferent. We need to know. We have asked to have meetings, with the majority of the selectmen, and there have been none. So,
And that's important, Ken, because, listen, as you and I know, this is serious. And without everybody being on the same page, and even if there aren't facts out on the table yet, we still need to be able to address issues as they come up so that we're not getting caught blind.
Right.
And I am just as concerned as you are that, when we did ask for the one meeting, that we basically were told that we wanted to sit and wait for further advice, and not much you and I can do other than continue to ask for the opportunity to be involved as best we can.
right. Well, I think it's important to know whether we're talking about a procedural malfunction here, or if it's something other than that. But, time's wasting, and we need to know. And unfortunately, now the rumors are running rampant. I've had several phone calls. I can't go downtown without having someone ask me, what's going on, and I have no answer for them. So, I mean, we need to understand what it is that's going on, and we need answers now rather than later. We've been campaigning for a long time about having checks and balances in place, and maybe now, something good, excuse me, maybe something good will happen, as far as this is concerned.
Sure, and even though we don't have the specifics or the details as to what happened or what didn't happen, I still think that we need to be as informed as possible, and I think we bear some responsibility to let the the taxpayers and voters and residents of town know what we know when we know it. I mean, that's the definition of transparency.
Right. I mean, we can't be in denial. I mean, I think personally, I think it's much better to be proactive than reactive. And I'd rather be ahead of the curve than chasing it.
Right, and at this point, there's no telling. I know that some meetings have been held, correct, with the auditor and our finance director. Out of that meeting, there was a letter back to the state addressing certain issues, but again, I think there's still more questions than answers, and there may not be any answers at this point, but certainly I think you and I agree that we should have had a little bit more discussion amongst the Board of Selectmen than there has been at this point.
Right. I mean, it's 2+ weeks now with no finance director, and I think that's absolutely critical that we reverse that situation immediately.
Right.
Moving along, I think while we're on denial, we can move into the reval that's going on here in Winston is another example. I specifically asked at last Monday night's selectmen meeting if they had a reval number. I was told that it was a preliminary number, and that was the end of the conversation. And I read in Friday's paper that it says here, Assessor Janice McKee said she was working with Vision Appraisal, the company the town hired to inspect properties, to finish the new property values. She said most property values are going down. And the headline of this article was that the revaluation notices may go out Monday in Winston. I just find it hard to believe that when we were at the selectmen meeting and I asked if they had those numbers or what the grand list number was, that we had no answer. It just, even if it was a preliminary number, this is something that we've been asking for, for quite a while.
Right.
And no response. I mean, it's just another, what I think is just denying and prolonging, this bad information that's going to be coming forth.
We've got the Heisman maneuver through the whole process here because it doesn't affect this year's budget. And Ken, you and I know, and again, we'll speak to in a second here, that this reval situation, it's not just Winsted, ladies and gentlemen. It's all across the state, and there's, factual information on the table of, towns that have been through this, that, the more proactive, government can be in heading off and, evaluating and doing making right decisions with the data that they've compiled, the sooner you get to that, the better. And I think we have, I'm not saying it's politically motivated, but I think that, to continue to stick our heads in the sand regarding the situation is bad government at best.
Well, you hit the nail on the head exactly. Every town in the state of Connecticut that has gone through a reval has seen this, reduction in their grand list. Winston is no different than the rest.
Right.
However, the difference is, just down the road in Waterbury, Mayor O'Leary has frozen all city spending. Another article that was in Republican, and I'll just read some highlights here. Mayor O'Leary has put a freeze on all non-essential municipal spending, hiring, and overtime to offset the impact of a looming property revaluation. The preliminary reval numbers are horrifying, he said. We have to do everything we can, cut everything we can, to build a surplus that can be used to protect taxpayers next year. This is something that Glenn and I talked about in length over the last, 6 months,
Right.
probably, during the budget negotiations. It continues on that this is because revaluation, which is going on right now, is likely to sink property values to 2002 levels and send the tax rate skyward from the current 41.8 mils to the low to mid 60s, officials have said.
Right.
I mean, that is horrifying.
Right. And Waterbury is a major city. I mean, not that, Winston is as large, but I mean, the financial impact, for services and the things that we need to do, I mean, there's going to be a shift of the tax burden, and unless we're prepared to react with, the information at hand, and I contend that the information has been, out there.
Well, obviously, there's preliminary information,
Sure.
but we've heard nothing of it,
Right.
And as we stated, holding back, to try to prevent the bad news isn't good for anyone.
No, and it's not for lack of asking, because I think we recognized and certainly quite a while ago that this was on the horizon. We're here now, and even up until tonight's show, we really don't have any specifics. So I guess we're all, along with you, waiting for the mailing that Janice does, and then we'll evaluate the the repercussions of what the data says. And clearly, with all the information we have from other towns within the state, it isn't going to be pretty.
All right. Well, if in fact the statements are going out on Monday, Town Hall was closed Thursday and Friday, so I don't know when they did these statements if they didn't know what the numbers were.
Right.
I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, if they have all this on a spreadsheet, which I'm sure they do, I mean, it's nothing to get a sum of all the functions and let us know what the numbers are. But obviously, we didn't.
It's human nature, I guess, to say that, when there's bad news, you hang on to it as long as you can. But I think when it comes to, running a functional, transparent government, that you need to be out in front of this stuff as best as possible. It's something we've called for, and certainly moving forward, if we are, fortunate enough to be sitting here next year, we're going to continue to ask that of our government and expect it.
Right. I think also that the budget that just passed, was a missed opportunity for all of us to, restart Winston on a path of, some financial sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
We've said over and over again that, they did get to a zero, but unfortunately, it was because, we had that $190,000 one-time revenue from RRD1,
Right.
and the fact that a police officer is going to resign, so half that salary was used to recoup some of the money. So, I mean, we have to stop basing this on, one-time revenue just to get us by. We can't keep kicking the can down the road, as we said in, previous shows.
Right. And Ken, I know you have a copy of it, and I guess this would be an appropriate time to talk a little bit about the, the budget procedure for next year. And I think it is going to take on kind of a life of its own as I look at where we've been, where we are, and where we're headed. I speak for myself when I say I applaud the majority for putting the brochure together, but I think in reality, I think a lot of the points that they note there are things that we have maintained and said for quite a while.
Maybe it's a good thing that they've been watching their show, because I mean, as you go down the line here, it's everything that we've mentioned, and that's fine. I mean, as long as we do the right thing for the town, I don't care who takes credit for it. But I'm happy to see that, at least apparently they agree with the things that we've said.
Sure.
And I hope that this continues to move forward. But I think it's very important to mention right now that I'm hopeful that they won't just take these objectives and try to justify the budget, that we currently have or have had in the past. I mean, we need to stop doing things the way we've done them in the past. We can't look at last year's budget and try to add, 9%, which is what they tried the first time this year, and it got shot down, severely. We need to look at, there's two sides to every coin. I think we need to look at what our needs are and what's affordable.
Right.
And we have to, work these things together somehow that's going to work for the town. I mean, the days are gone where we can just, simply look at a previous budget and add to it.
Right, and you hit the nail on the head, Ken, as we look around, again, at the town and some of the things that we've called for, some of the things that we have, actually seen done that are out-of-the-box thinking and new ideas. I think the Gilbert, the move of 7th and 8th grade up to Gilbert was a terrific opportunity for us to do something different, but that has worked. And I think the budget process, and I'm just going to ask, if you don't mind, maybe walk through a couple of the objectives and the timeline, just to give people a flavor for what, assuming that we all embrace this and do what its intention is.
Right.
I certainly hope that that's
Well,
we're headed with this.
the timeline, I'll just read it. December 3rd, which is our next selectmen's meeting. Request reports from the town manager to examine possible savings in the logistics of consolidating or privatization of public works, dispatch, building department, planning department, town hall maintenance, and the fire department. These will all be on different dates, but I mean, that's when the request is going to go for this. This is something that you and I have requested several times. Maybe it sounds different coming from someone else's lips, and that's fine. As long as it gets done, as I stated earlier, that's all I want to see happen. December 17th, meet with all revenue-producing and collecting departments. January 7th, request a 3-year forecast from the town manager and the finance director. January 22nd, establish budget priorities. Also on that night, examine fee schedule. This has been talked about for several years. February 4th, preliminary financial report due to the Board of Selectmen. And then from there on, it's just basically review and discussion. And the public is invited to all these. These are public hearings, public meetings, Board of Selectmen meetings. And I think it's important that people should come out and voice their opinions. I think that's hugely critical in this process, moving forward. But there's also some of the objectives in here are to evaluate reports from commissions and departments, identify efficiencies. I mean, we've been down this road before. We've identified some, namely the finance between the Board of Ed and the town, that was overwhelmingly voted in favor of doing that consolidation or efficiencies. But, unfortunately, it's been poo-pooed for, whatever reason. Right. Address the education in Winsted. It's something that's been on almost a monthly basis. Establish a clear timeline and establish a 3-year plan. I mean, these are all things that we've, asked for in the past. But as I said, hopefully moving forward, this will, come to pass.
Right. And there probably are, people that are watching tonight that are employees of the town, and our goal is to streamline and make government services as affordable as possible. It has to happen. And when you raise the topic of privatization, I mean, that it brings up a lot of fear, and I understand that. And I think all that we initially are asking the town manager to do is to take some time and do some evaluation of what services we offer. Are we spending the tax money properly? Is there an opportunity to, privatize a portion or all? All that data has to be compiled before we would make any kind of decisions to make any, significant changes.
Right.
But it has to be on the table. We're no different than the state, which is running a huge deficit, as we talked about last week, and the federal government, which is out of control. Spending has to be reprioritized, and out of this exercise, and I have to believe that, kicking or screaming, the seven of us will adhere to that and hopefully come up with a better budget next year. And I think it's got to be built from the ground up instead of the top down, like Ken just mentioned. I think the fact that, typically budgets are either added to, 1, 2, 3%, those days I think are gone. And what can't be lost too is we need to, as we've said time and time again, to get to the investment side of the equation. And clearly, if we are able to make some cuts and realignments of expenditures and get to the point where we can put a road program in place, that benefits the entire town, and I think people will support that.
I agree. And I think just the fact that this budget outline, whatever you want to call it, was presented is hopefully a sign that we are starting to cross the divide, where, we can make some progress moving forward. I think that it's critical that we change the way that we do things right now. I think the reval's only going to add to this. It's going to force us into doing things differently than we have in the past.
Right.
It's not going to be easy. I mean, we have some hard choices and some, extremely hard decisions to make, but, we're going to need to cross that bridge when we get to it.
And I applaud you, Ken, for saying it really doesn't matter who gets credit for it as long as it gets done correctly. And I think ultimately the town of Winchester, our future depends on, bipartisan, decisions that move us forward. And clearly this is a small step, but a necessary one. And I'm glad that you did take the time to say that it doesn't matter who gets credit as long as it gets done.
The average taxpayer doesn't care if it's an R or a D.
Right.
He just wants what's best for all concerned. There is a bright side to all this. I think that the fact that we will actually start to address these problems as a team, move the ball forward, so to speak. But there are things that we need to do. I mean, first and foremost, I think we need to get our financial house in order. That's critical. I think the plan to revitalize, excuse me, and to rebuild our commercial in the neighborhood downtown area is extremely important to moving this process forward. And we have to execute on that plan. I think that'll be then I think that's going to be the only time. Then and only then will we start to realize some of the dollars that we need to invest in the infrastructure and the other needs of the community.
Right. And as we've stated time and time again, I mean, we're here campaigning for a better Winchester. I mean, obviously, when it comes time to next year's election, Ken and I and the group that we put forward, we will have a plan, and I think that's important to go through, a 2-year stint, sitting on the board without having some very focused ideas and reacting to things rather than being proactive and addressing issues as soon as they come up and even anticipating them. I think that's what we're trying to separate ourselves for as we move forward.
It's like we said, it's not going to be an easy thing to do, but we'll get there.
Right.
The reval, that information, it will be coming out very soon, and I think that's going to have huge impacts. So
yeah, and that's going to occupy a lot of discussion going forward, and I'm certain that it's going to be the topic of future shows for us. But again, whatever the news is, we need to be able to react to it and take the information and make good, solid financial decisions for the town. And we need to keep people here. I know that reval always tends to scare people, and houses go up for sale and try to get out, and that is not what we need to have happen. And I think part of what we do as far as structuring the budget is going to be critical.
right. I don't think that this would be the time that anyone would want to sell real estate anyways. I mean, they would have, I don't know, I personally would think that would be difficult to sell property, especially after a reval comes through like this, and the values are down but the taxes are up.
Right.
And that's what we're going to be facing. So I mean, even if they wanted to sell property, I don't even know if it would be possible to, or at a greatly reduced, you lose your shirt trying to do that.
Right.
So here again, I mean, it's critical that we improve the downtown, and I've stated that right along. I think that's the first critical step in moving this stuff forward, is to revitalize the downtown through changing multifamily dwellings into single-family dwellings. It's worked other places, and there's no reason why it can't work here. And I think that's going to be huge for us.
And I've had some recent discussions with the town manager and Dick Labick, who heads up the Economic Development Commission, and there are some rumblings of some things happening in town, and you know, certainly as you know, facts and details come out, we'll be able to share those. But the more focus that we can spend on trying to turn the downtown around, that does change the equation. And you know, trying to get values up downtown, you know, that's a positive direction for everybody. You know, not only, you know, the downtown merchants, but the taxpayers. Is that you know, as part of the formula as to who pays what and
Right.
and going forward.
Well, it should be very interesting in this next week. I'm sure a lot of information will be put forth in the papers or through the media somehow.
And I guess there is an appeal process too as things go out. I mean, I'm not sure how that's all going to shake out, but
Yeah.
I know in the past that people have taken, you know, an opportunity to
Right.
taken advantage of the opportunity to.
I thought it was a little funny. It's not that funny, but it was a little funny that one of the selectmen mentioned to the town manager to ask Janice McKee, the tax assessor, to be present at our next meeting to explain the process that needs to be done for the appeal of, you know, the reassessments
Right.
that are obviously coming down the pike.
Well, I'm sure they know it's coming,
Well, they do.
and you know how it all ends up. I think we want to wrap our arms around it as best we can, and make certain that you know, we make good decisions.
Right. Well, I think we've run out of time again.
Yep.
We appreciate you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.